Welcome back on the mat. So we'll start in a nice upright seated position. I like to rest hands on my lap, but you can place them on the knees, whichever way is comfortable for you. It's just important to relax the shoulders down. So once you've got a nice upright position, close your eyes so that we can start with our practice. So with the eyes being closed, hopefully the attention is drawn inwards more, and you just become aware of any subtle sensations in the body. We can distract the mind by focusing on specific areas. So think of the lower body, feel your sit bones making contact with the floor, feel the knees dropping down towards the mat. And then as you take your awareness up along the spine, grow as tall as possible, get length, lift slightly in the chest or the sternum. Notice the movement in the chest and the abdomen as you inhale and as you exhale. And before we do any special breathing exercise or technique, just become aware of your own breathing pattern. Hopefully the inhales and exhales are moving through the nose and not the mouth. As we are simply focusing on the breath, take this time to commit to the breathing by keeping it deeper, even if we're in a posture that maybe forces you to not want to keep it deep and slow. If you do Ujjayi pranayama, let's start with Ujjayi. It's an energizing breathing technique. What I like about it is the fact that you constantly hear your own breath, and it acts as a reminder to keep breathing deep, controlled and slow. So slowly opening the eyes as we continue with that same breathing pattern, making our way out of seated onto our backs to start with a bit of core work. First, just pull knees into your chest. So pull knees closer to the body, flexing with the feet, and pull your heels close to your glutes. Now, as you compress, getting knees close to body, lift your head, lift the shoulder blades, turning the body into a little ball. You can let go of the knees, keep the legs where they are, take the arms forwards. Keep the position, bit of a static hold. Feel the core working. If you lose the connection, pull your knees even closer. And very slowly bring the shoulder blades down. Grab hold behind the backs of the knees and rock up into a seated position. Position the hands slightly behind the shoulders, feet hip distance. And as we push through the feet, so you want to lift the toes, spread the toes, grip mat, push through your hands and your feet as you lift your hips into a tabletop position. But in the tabletop, playing with our body awareness a little bit, shift a bit of weight over to the left and over to the right, very subtle. It's maybe not the most comfortable sort of movement, shifting weight from side to side, and we're going to bring it back to center, and now pushing the knees forwards and then shifting a bit of weight back. Notice what happens in the shoulders as you push the knees forwards. We're stretching a bit deeper into the anterior deltoids, so just shifting weight back and forth, but using your core strength to maintain Good posture. 2 more, pushing knees or shins forwards, back to center, and 1 more, pushing knees forwards and back to center. We'll get the left ankle above the right knee. Pull the knee down, but don't dip the left hip down, and hold. Just to play with a bit of activation in the lower leg. Push the heel away from the floor, getting onto the tip toes of the right foot. And slowly bring the heel down. Bring your left foot down. Switch. We get the right ankle above the left knee. Still keeping the hips up, pulling the right knee down. Keeping hips square, hold. Pushing ball of the foot down into the floor, raising the heel. Feel that you are making use of your core strength. Even though we're focusing on the lower leg here. Slowly bring the heel down. Step the right foot back onto the floor. And using an exhale to lower down onto the mat. Let's cross legs, bring hands into the down dog shape as we position into all fours. So in this all fours position, spread your fingers, and with the fingers being spread, we want to lift the heels of the hands off the mat. So the palms need to come off the mat, but you don't want to shift too much weight back. You might have to shift a bit of weight back, but see if you can sort of maintain shoulders above the fingers as you lift the palms, keeping the fingers firmly on the floor, and back down. So lifting in the palms, and back down. You can move at your own pace. You don't have to link breath and movement here. Just lifting and down. Just doing a few repetitions. It's quite a nice way to not just stretch muscles in the hands and wrist and forearm area, but also to strengthen a bit. You might have to do one hand at a time as you get tired from lifting up and down. Try to not use momentum, but rather use the muscle and a bit of stability to come up and down. Just one more, taking it up, and then bring it down. Tuck your toes, sit back onto the heels, shaking the hands out. All right, we bring down dog, hands back onto the mat. This time around, straighten your legs into a traditional plank shape. As we get to plank, feel that you've got the feet hip distance, hands below the shoulders, and you're pushing away from the floor. We'll be doing knees, chest, chin, or Chaturanga Dandasana. So it's your call. I'll do knees, chest, chin with the first round, and then Chaturanga from there on out. So placing knees down, tuck elbows, exhale, bring your chest and chin to the floor, bum up, and inhale, pushing all the way back up, straightening the legs. If you want to take it a step further, exhale, lower down to Chaturanga, and inhale, push back up. Now lifting your hips into a down dog. It was slow and controlled, but the idea is to make sure that the hands stay on the mat throughout. So if you felt the hands lifting in any way, then just know with the next one, you have to focus on pushing through the base of the index fingers. So lower the hips. If you're doing knees, chest, chin, then be my guest. Otherwise, do a Chaturanga with me, keeping the index fingers firmly on the floor. Exhale down. Inhale, pushing back up. Hips back up into a downward facing dog. In the down dog, we'll start to walk the hands back, so not the feet forwards, but rather the hands more to the back of the mat, feeling the heels grounding down. And maybe just for a second holding it here, where you feel the lower legs getting a bit of a stretch. With the feet being in maximum dorsiflexion, we definitely target the lower legs. So we're stretching the calf muscles a bit, but now we take it past that point, all the way into a forward bend. Bend into the knees if you have to. You don't have to lock the legs and bend into the back. Keep your back flat, bend into your knees, do a halfway lift, and exhale to a forward bend. In the forward bend, as you keep arching in the back, or as you keep pushing your chest into the quads, just slowly start to straighten the legs out as much as you can. So feel the stretch in the backs of the legs, and just know that this is a healthy stretch for you. It becomes unhealthy if you lock legs and you round your spine. That's not what we want to do. You can lift your head with a halfway lift and start to walk the hands to the front of the mat into a normal down dog. Now, use an inhale to lower hips into plank. Exhale, we once again do knees, chest, chin, or Chaturanga. Inhale back into plank, and exhale into down dog. And bending into your knees, look up. In breath, feet in between hands. Halfway lift. Exhale, forward bend. In our reverse swan dive, take arms up. Exhale, mountain pose. Get your feet mat width apart. So nice wide stance. The first step is to get softness in the knees. Step number 2, push your hips back as you bring your chest forward slightly. Then start to pull with the feet towards one another so you can feel activation along the inner legs. Place hands onto the knees. Lift your chest more. Start to arch in the back. Now as you reach this shape, get more weight onto the heels, but keep pulling legs towards one another. Pulling the legs towards one another is an important cue. Bring the arms alongside the body. Lift the sternum more. And to complete the posture, inhale. Reach with the arms out in front, hands in line with shoulders, but reach with the tailbone to the back of the mat. As you keep that arch in the back, you keep pulling legs towards one another. Take a nice full in-breath. Exhale as you turn it into a forward bend. Find the big toes with the peace fingers. Inhale, halfway lift. This is where we aim to straighten the legs if you have the flexibility. Exhale to a forward bend. Pull yourself into a deeper forward fold. Inhalation, halfway lift, releasing the toes and just pivot the heels in slightly. And as you bring the heels in, start to sink down, getting the hips in line with the knees, and take the arms out in front. So we're still pulling the knees apart, just reaching forwards, almost like we did in that modified chair, but we're keeping the hips in line with the knees, on the same level as the knees. Take a nice full in-breath. Exhale, planting the palms down, forward bend, keeping the toes or the feet slightly externally rotated. Inhale, halfway lift, and this is where you can square off in the feet. Exhale, stepping back into plank. As you make your way into plank, shift weight onto the left hand, pivot both feet. Take right arm up and then overhead. Look down to the floor. You can reach with the right arm back up to ceiling. Lift the right foot. Step it to the front of the mat. Exhale, bring the hand down to the inside of the foot. Now as you get onto the ball of the back foot, walk the right foot slightly over to the side. Get the right arm below the right leg, hand behind your back. If it's too difficult to bind, stay here. Alternatively, find your wrist, but keep your shoulders square. Or release the bind by getting left hand onto the mat below the shoulder. And then take it back into your side plank. Once again, detailed movements, slower movements, but maintaining control over your breath. Exhale, right hand down, pivot feet. Taking weight over to the right, left arm goes up and then it goes over your head. Look down to the floor as you raise your left arm, lifting the left foot. You can step the foot to the front of the mat. Left hand to the inside. You want to make space for the shoulder, so if you have to walk the foot out to the side a bit, do so. Left arm under the leg, hand behind the back. Find your wrist, keeping shoulders square. You'll release the right hand below the right shoulder as you release the bind. Taking the left arm up as you step left leg back into Vashisthasana, side plank. Exhale, bring your left hand down. In this plank position, place knees onto the mat. Sitting back into child's pose. You can make your way back up. Tucking toes, sitting back onto the heels. A nice way to stretch the toes and the bottoms of the feet. If it's too intense, let the tops of the feet rest on the floor, sitting on the heels. So headstand or half headstand. I like to get detailed in this posture purely because you've got to be careful when you do it. If you're not comfortable doing it in the middle of a room, I encourage you to take your mat to the wall. But just a few basics. If you have a headstand practice, you can get into your headstand so long. If you want to once again recap on the essentials or important pointers of the posture, have a look. So I firmly get the elbows onto the floor, gripping hold of the triceps. That's where I get the hands together. So you don't want the elbows to push out to the sides. It's going to make the balance more difficult. I'll first demonstrate half headstand. Squeezing palms together is maybe a good bet for that. Tucking toes, straighten the legs. You can then place the crown of the head onto the floor as you walk the feet closer. But I wouldn't want you to simply stay in this position if you're doing half headstand. You can push the head away from the mat and then subtly place it back down and push and back down. And if you want to hold it here for a while, maybe even walking the feet a bit closer, do so. If you get tired, placing the knees down, relaxing in child's pose. If you're going for full headstand, you can go with the same hand grip. I prefer to open the hands, gripping the back of the mat, but nothing changes in terms of how far the elbows are apart. So I get the hands on the mat, hands open, fingertips pushing into the backs of the knees. And as we do the posture, you will find that we've got about 75% of the weight on the hands, the forearms and the elbows at least. So you don't have too much weight on the neck. I tuck my chin, place the top of the head onto the mat, straighten my legs, walk the feet up, take one leg up, float the opposite leg up, and we hold it in an upside down position. If you then get tired, you can gently bring a leg down and then rest in child's pose. So feel free to join me in this headstand position. Keep core engagement, focus on one spot, and most importantly, keep the breath deep. Know your limits. If you have to do half headstand, it's practically the same as your full headstand. Full headstand, you maybe just get a bit more of a core workout. But that's about it. The way you'll be getting out of headstand would be by taking one leg down and then opposite leg down to the mat. Placing knees down and relaxing in a child's pose. There's no rush. But once you get to child's pose, just take a minute in child's pose before we come back up. From your child's pose, getting back up onto all fours, but then taking it into a seated position. So as you get to seated, straighten your left leg, step the right foot to the inside of the left leg. We're going to reach with the right hand to the outside of the left foot, resting the left hand onto the floor. Instead of pulling yourself into a deeper forward bend, pull with the left hand away, opening up in the chest slightly and feeling a nice lat stretch along the right side of the body. Just a seated posture with 3. Stretching it out. I hope in the shoulder, not the shoulder stand, but the headstand, I hope that you felt the shoulders working quite a lot, as well as the core, with very little weight on the head. Imagine you're standing in a mountain pose, but you just have your fingers interlaced behind your head. That's pretty much a headstand shape. Just nice and tall. And we do bone stacking, so you're not arching in the back and things like that. And headstand is a posture you can hold for, you can definitely hold it for up to 15 minutes even. Let's slowly get out of this one as you make your way up. Switch legs. So the headstand practice, let's start with the left hand gripping holds the outside of the right hand, and then pull, opening up to the left. So getting back to the headstand, your headstand practice is something that you should be patient with and gradually build up to a longer headstand. But you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to get out of the headstand and feel that you are completely dizzy or that you've got any tension in the head or neck area. It's got to be, in a sense, effortless. Just like a mountain pose. Keep pulling, giving the lats a nice stretch. And then slowly release as you come back up. So now we step both feet onto the mat. Get the left ankle on top of the right knee. And you can adjust the posture accordingly. So this figure 4 pose, the idea is to keep length in the spine, that's for sure. And you want to work your chest closer to your leg. But if you want to walk the bum closer to the front foot to make it more intense, you can do that. You can even simply just step the foot closer to the body, but keeping a flat back and feeling a nice stretch along the left glute muscles. Always want to make the most of a typical stretching posture on the mat. I find that when we do a challenging practice and we get to stretches, it's almost as if you've got license to relax. And that's not the case. You want to work hard. You want to have that same mindfulness or presence on the mat, that awareness on the mat to get the most out of this stretch, because this is good preparation for pigeon pose. I'm going to slowly get out of this one, so you can maybe just step the foot further away, bring the foot down, and then we switch. We get the right ankle above the left knee and find your figure 4 pose. Holding it there, breathing. If the mind starts to wander off, bring your awareness to your breath. It's a breathing practice, and after corpse pose we can carry on with life. Slowly get out of your figure 4 pose. The next one, it's maybe more balanced than core really. So you're going to pistol grip the big toes. Rock back onto the sit bones. Bring the knees together. So you have to lift the legs high enough to get the knees together. And in this position, you've got the option of simply staying here, working on getting length in your spine, or straighten your legs, keeping length in your spine. The same way we dealt with the feet and the balancing posture, taking the leg out in front and pushing the base of the big toes away from the body, that's the same sensation you want here. You don't want to simply flex your feet as much as possible. You're flexing the feet, but then you start to push away from the body. And that's going to give you a better grip on the toes. You're curling toes away from the body. Option of staying here, and if it gets too intense, you can even bend into the knees and get back to the previous phase. Or option of taking the legs out to the sides, but keeping your back flat. You want to feel that the quad muscles are working, and it's not simply a case of hanging on to the toes. If you are in this wide leg position, then you can let go of the toes and keep the legs up. If you have the legs together, bring them apart, even if you can't straighten the legs, and let go of the toes. And then very slowly lower the legs down and just come down into a forward bend. If you don't want to go all the way down to the floor, or if it's quite challenging, then just keep hinging in the hips, pushing the heels down, bringing your chest forwards. Always got options on the mat. It's not as if this posture is only called Upavesta Konasana if you have the chest down. Whatever phase you are in, if you're sitting in this position, holding and working hard, that's your Upavesta Konasana. Use the in-breath, slowly making your way up, and then bring your legs together so that we can relax down onto the mat. As you get onto the mat, we'll keep knees at 90, and we'll keep them together, taking the feet off the mat, arms out to the sides, drop your legs over to the right, gaze to the left. A very comfortable spinal rotation. Inhale, knees to center, and exhale over to the left, gaze to the right. Bring your knees back to center. From there, straighten the legs. You can get comfortable into a corpse pose. So just allowing the body to be completely relaxed. Scan your body, make sure you're not holding any tension. Feet flopping out to the sides, fingers curling in naturally. Closing your eyes, and for the first time in the practice, allow your breath to be natural. You're not controlling your breathing pattern. And stay in this corpse pose for as long as you like.